Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to this third edition of our English for All series. My name's Tom. I work here at the embassy in the public diplomacy section. So I'm excited to join you for this session on polite expressions. So that's going to be the topic today. Um, so uh, let's welcome.
Yes, and as you can guess from the previous video, so as Tom said, we're talking about politeness, and I have a question to you. As far as I know, you are from Minnesota, right?
Yes.
I was wondering whether there is a specific thing that would specifically describe politeness in Minnesota. I mean, what does it feel to how does it feel to have politeness in Minnesota?
Well, interesting question because Minnesotans are kind of known for being overly polite, almost too polite in a sense. One story: when I was back home recently in Minnesota, we had a breakfast buffet and everybody was going up, and there's three of us and everybody was saying, "No, you go, no, you go, no, you go," and nobody was getting food because everybody wanted everybody else to go first. And just in my head, knew I'm back in Minnesota because everybody's being overly polite. So, which I think is a good thing, but sometimes if you're not used to it, people might not understand it.
And how long did it take?
So I was getting hungry, so finally I just kind of jumped in. I might have been the rude one. The cake jumped in and got some food, but then everything got going. So a good few minutes, I think.
Yeah, it goes very close to the Armenian reality because in Armenia, if you have observed, so when being served, I mean, in the sense of food, there is a, I don't know, culturally specific manner to say no thank you for the first time. And then again, no thank you for the second time. And then for the third time, you get the food. I don't know. I mean, regions are very specific in their cultural element, right?
Yes, yeah, very similar.
Yeah. Um, so, anything to add about American politeness or anything?
No, I watched the. I hope you all had a chance to watch the intro video. I thought that it was very interesting. I know it's one thing about being direct, and one thing to understand if you're talking with someone who knows English, and they know you don't know English. If you are direct, people understand that, so they won't take. I wouldn't take offense if I knew you didn't know English well and you were very direct with me, because that's happened to me in other places. If I knew you knew English, you're like you were another American, and you started being very direct with me, then I might get a little offended. But so as you're learning the English language, don't worry about making mistakes or even being direct. A lot of we understand and just really appreciate taking the time to learn English. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much, Tom, for your time. And with your permission, I will go on.
Okay.
And first of all, I would like to thank everybody for your comments and for following us. And you don't really imagine how inspiring it is for all of us that you talk to us, that you send your questions. And if we paraphrase our slogan, which says English gives you wings to fly, I will say English gives you wings to fly, but you give us wings to work harder. So thank you for that. The success of any communication is not only the content, but also how it is presented. And one and the same idea can be conveyed in different forms. And the results may be quite different. And the ability to avoid sharp edges is very important in this sense. Besides, it costs nothing to be polite, but the benefits are very many. So, for example, if you're talking about a person with limited abilities, it's not a good idea to choose the most direct and even sometimes offensive word. Instead, you can turn to milder versions, like, for example, differently abled. This is one of the versions to talk about such people. It means that they are able, but they are a bit differently able, right? Or you can turn to another version which says physically challenged, or for example mentally challenged, instead of more direct and sometimes rude versions of disabled, which implies that the person is not able, or handicapped, or even a worse version which runs like invalid. Or if you're talking about a person who is no longer alive, instead of saying he died, which is also okay, but you can turn to another version which runs like he passed away. Or if you are in a luxurious restaurant and you want to wash your hands or to correct your makeup, you can say, where's the ladies' room? Where's the ladies' room? Or you can turn to, or you can, the other version, you can say, excuse me, where's the gentleman's room? Where's the gentleman's room? And politeness is expressed in different cultures in different ways. Accordingly, in Armenian, it's quite fine to come up with direct expressions, while when we learn English, we Armenians need to be a bit more careful when structuring the sentences. And a sentence might be a suggestion, and if you come up with a suggestion in Armenian, you can directly say «Գնանք թատրոն», or you can just as well say «Ուզում եմ քեզ հրավիրել թատրոն». If we translate these expressions into English, like shall we go to the theater, or I want to invite you to the theater, they sound quite fine. But there exist culturally more specific forms to do it. For example, you can say, what if we go to the theater? What if we go to the theater? Or you can say, why not going to the theater? Why not going to the theater? Or you can just turn it into a negative statement and say, why don't we go to the theater? Why don't we go to the theater? Or you can turn to even more relaxed forms like, how about going to the theater? How about going to the theater? Or what do you think about going to the theater? What do you think about going to the theater? Or you can even turn to more reserved versions, even more polite versions, by saying, would you mind going to the theater? Would you mind going to the theater? Or would you like to go to the theater? Would you like to go to the theater? Just mind the difference between the following words, verbs, in case of would you mind, this expression is generally followed by a gerund construction. Would you mind going or joining, right? And in case of would you like, this expression is followed by an infinitive. Would you like to join me for a theater performance, say? Generally, in our interactions and our communication with people around us, we come up with a number of requests, right? And if we want our requests to be met and to be fulfilled, we need to be very scrupulous on how we structure those requests. And one way to do it is to say, for example, I wonder if you could help me with my report. I wonder if you could help me with my report. By the way, this very construction can be used in the continuous form too. You can say, I was wondering if you could help me with my report. Or you can just as well say, could you help me with my English if you don't mind? Could you help me with my English if you don't mind? By the way, I want to draw your attention to the fact that the Armenian sound the and the English sound d are a bit different, because in Armenian, when you produce the sound of the, you produce it like, for example, dura, right? It's ordinary d, dura. While in English, when you pronounce the same sound, it has the coloring of j. So it's not open the door, because in this case, the words are English, but the sound is Armenian. So any native speaker would say, open the door, or keep the floor dry, not dry, but keep the word dry. In case of the requests, you can also turn to more relaxed and less sticky forms. Like, for example, you can say, if it's not a problem, will you send me an email? If it's not a problem, will you send me an email? Or you can say, if it's okay with you, can I leave my dog with you for an hour? If it's okay with you, can I leave my dog with you for an hour? Or you can just as well say, when you have a moment, or when you have a minute, could you please give me a call? When you have a minute, could you please give me a call? Or you can say, if you get the chance, or if you have the chance, could you please pay her a visit? Could you please pay her a visit if you get the chance, or if you have the chance? In English, it's always good, it's always smart to avoid direct orders and to turn to milder, like more politically correct and diplomatic versions of saying something. So for that, you can say, for example, instead of saying, your essay is bad, work harder, you can say, you should probably work harder on your essay. You should probably work harder on your essay. Or you can say, instead of saying, you're hopeless, quit it, you can just say, you should probably try something else. You should probably try something else. Mind the huge impact of the modal verbs when you are trying to make your speech polite. And in that sense, modal verbs like should, could, as well as would, they have no equals. For example, you can say, could you do me a favor? Could you do me a favor? In translation, in Armenian, this would sound like, կարող եմ ձեզ մի բան խնդրել? Կարող եմ ձեզ մի բան խնդրել? Or you can also say, ինձ համար կամ ինձ մի լավություն կանեք? Or if we turn to the modal verb of would, we would say, would you please watch my children while I'm out? Would you please watch my children while I'm out? Or you can turn to even more reserved version and say, I would greatly appreciate it if you covered the task by Monday. I would greatly appreciate it if you covered the task by Monday. I also want to say that questions can often be used instead of imperatives if you want to make your speech polite. And you may find yourself in a situation when you're doing something really important that cannot be interrupted, and someone asks you something. Instead of rudely saying and turning the person down, and saying like, go away, you can say, could you give me a moment, please? Could you give me a moment or a minute, please? And the possible answer to this very question would be like, sure, let me know when you are available. Sure, let me know when you are available. Or instead of roughly saying, disagreeing to someone and saying you are wrong, it's quite a good idea to say, I don't think you're right. I don't think you're right. Which means that maybe you are right, but I don't think so. Or instead of saying that's a bad idea, you can just say, I am doubtful about that. I am doubtful about that. Or you can also say, I have a couple of concerns about that. I have a couple of concerns about that. And at times, we appear in a setting where we're in a hurry and we need to cut the conversation short. And not to appear rude, we can say, I don't want to keep you waiting long. I don't want to keep you waiting long. Or you can also say, I don't want to take too much of your time. I don't want to take too much of your time. Well, I hope that today's lesson was useful to you and that you will make use of the expressions that we talked about today. And if you have questions, then I will be happy to answer them. And besides, I want to remind that during our previous lessons, that is the 2 weeks, we discussed farewells and we discussed greetings. So if you fail to follow our classes, in the comments field, you can find the links to those classes, and we will be absolutely happy if you watch them. And in case you have questions, that will be my pleasure to answer them. At the very end, I wanted to say that next week, that will be our 4th week. We're going to discuss the ways to sound professional. So think about this topic and generate questions and write them down in the comments. And during the whole week, I will be at your disposal to answer them. This brings me to the end of the class. And I hope that I will see you next week in front of your computer screens on Monday with our video recording, and on Thursday at 5 p.m. With our live session. So see you next week and take care.